Hello nerds, thank you for joining me once again right here on Generally Nerdy. This is your week in Nerdom. That is the show that you're watching, the news show that we do now twice a week again. Things have gotten back to the point where that can happen. So in today's episode we have Grammys to kind of talk about, not really. There's actually, our biggest section this week is movies. We have The Thing, The Mask, Batman, Scorpion's freaking Venge, all of that. There's a bunch of stuff going on. We actually have a little bit of everything, so let's hit the intro. I'm kind of a fan of my new intro, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, there you go. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into it. And that, obviously, you already know it because you're listening right now or watching right now, and that is that we are back to twice a week for your nerd news, and that is good. So, other than that, no real housekeeping to keep up on, so let's get into the news. And starting things off, we're talking music. So, the first thing we are talking about in music is Slipknot. Kind of. Slipknot adjacent. There was... When All Hope Is Gone was being recorded, there are four members, Sean, Corey, Sid, and... I can't remember who the fourth member was, but there were four members who recorded music together that while they kind of were at an impasse, presumably with Joey, because shortly thereafter Joey was released from the band. So when there was an impasse, there was some sort of difficulty recording, they separated off into a different studio entirely and recorded an album of some sort. If it's a full length, that has yet to be seen because they have not made that known, or if maybe it's just an EP, we don't know. But it is new music from the minds, some of the minds at least, that bring us Slipknot. So that's really interesting. But the more newsworthy bit of this is that Sean recently said in interviews that he was going to be releasing this music sometime this year. So he said specifically this album cycle, which some outlets have interpreted as this touring cycle. So exactly when, still very much up in the air, it would seem, but that is what we've got there. Next, we're going to very, very briefly talk about the Grammys. Tool won Best Metal Performance, and we're moving on. Next, we have an awesome rumor, kind of potential news piece more than anything. I didn't put this in the rumor mill because we needed to beef up music a little bit, and it's not really a rumor because it's an illusion. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Shadows Fall is an amazing band, and they have been not making music. I don't know if they ever officially broke up, but they're not together currently. They're at least on some sort of hiatus if they didn't break up proper. That being said, they are amazing. I've seen them at least a dozen times, and honestly a fantastic show every time. But their drummer, Jason what is his last name? Bittner. I almost said bitter. Jason Bittner was at NAMM and doing interviews. You can see a link down in the description to this specific interview where he talks about potentially doing a reunion tour, music, who knows, with the guys from Shadows Fall. He is pretty vague with his vocabulary, so it could be one of his other musical projects that he's referring to, but it seems that all of the guys in Shadows Fall are kind of saying similar things when they do interviews as well, so hopefully that's the direction it's going. But that's what we got for music, guys. Now, let's talk streaming, TV streaming to be specifically, and honestly, we only have one piece in TV streaming, and that is the unfortunate news that Howard the Duck, the Kevin Smith-fronted Howard the Duck series, animated series that was going to be on Hulu, as well as the Tigra&Dazzler series, also animated, also on Hulu, both of those got canceled. We are still good for MODOK. The casting has been announced for MODOK, so that's still on Kevin Feige's slate now that he's the one taking over these things, as well as Hit Monkey is still in the works, is still happening. But because of the demise of Howard the Duck and Tigra&Dazzler, we're not going to get the Offenders either. That hasn't been officially announced, though I feel like the Offenders officially wasn't announced as happening anyway. Just all of the members of the Offenders were announced, so it was assumed that eventually they would do like they did on Netflix and do a team-up show, and now that can't happen because we don't have the whole team. Yeah, presumably. We don't know that for certain, but that's all we have for TV. Next, we are moving into movies. And movies is our biggest section, save for maybe the rumor mill for this episode. Movies, first things first, horror movie fans and fans of practical effects, if you like the middle movie of this, The Thing is coming to a theater near you once again. It has just been announced that Universal is teaming up with Blumhouse, so horror movie genre powerhouse Blumhouse Productions. They're teaming up together to do a new adaptation of the John W. Campbell book, Who Goes There, which was the basis for the 1951 Thing from Another World and 1982's epic The Thing, and then 2011's really lackluster The Thing. This is going to be unique from those in that the new manuscript that was just found from Campbell called Frozen Hell, which is basically the same story just with more content. It's a longer form version of it. Because Who Goes There is a novella, it's a short novel, whereas From Hell, or Frozen Hell rather, is a proper long form novelization. So manuscript for the novel at least. So the information from the longer form Frozen Hell is going to find its way into this new Blumhouse version of the movie. So hopefully that is a good thing. Also, hopefully, Blumhouse is smart enough to do practical effects like we got in the 82 movie with Kurt Russell, because the 2011 movie was a hot mess. So that should be the lesson learned there, but that's all what we got for news on that one. Next, we're moving over to The Batman, and there has been a new casting announcement on The Batman that is a little spoilery, kinda, sorta. If you're really sensitive to spoilers, you might want to skip ahead a second, but they just cast Commissioner Pete Savage has just been cast. The actor playing him will be Alex Ferns. So that lends us to believe that at some point in the movie, it is being assumed that at the beginning of the movie, Commissioner Gordon will not actually be Commissioner Gordon. He will just be a regular cop or a detective or something along those lines. And we'll have Commissioner Pete Savage in that role to begin with. Though it is possible, because we don't know what the script is, we don't know the story, it seems to be an early Batman story, so that would make sense that Gordon is not yet Commissioner, but it would, at some point, it is possible that Gordon loses Commissioner, and then that's when they put in Savage. But again, that's not very likely, just a possibility. Now let's talk about The Mask. Jim Carrey, we've talked about this previously in rumors. The studio is looking to get Jim Carrey back in the green mask. So Jim Carrey said recently in an interview with comicbook.com that he'd do it, so long as they find a director, a quote, visionary filmmaker, unquote, to direct it. Somebody who can breathe new life into that character. Somebody that Carrey feels is telling a unique story, because otherwise, he doesn't see the point in returning to the character. Which, I mean, to his credit, he's not wrong. So there's that. And then our next piece is the DC Extended Universe. This one's a little bit more meta, not about a single movie specifically, but with Birds of Prey coming out next week. We did hear from writer Christina Hodson, who wrote Birds of Prey. She says that, and this leads into the DC Extended Universe. So she says that there is, in fact, a group of producers who are in charge of how all of the DC movies link together. Now, this kind of goes in the face of previous reports that they're disbanding the DCU altogether, and each movie's going to be a standalone, and they're not going to have anything to do with each other. So now Hodson has said this in the press. It seems evident that there is, in fact, still a proper DCEU, and that we will be seeing more connected movies. Joker being kind of the exception to the rule, though it's been obvious that they kind of want to pursue that line as well, the quote-unquote WB Black line. So like the Black label that DC has for comic books, they want to keep doing that in movies as well. But again, none of this has been officially stated from Warner Brothers, just writer Christina Hodson. And then our final piece is Mortal Kombat related. Of course it is. So we just got, there's two things actually, and I had to update the notes literally right before I went to film, because we just got a trailer for Scorpion's Revenge, which I did a reaction video for, so you can check that out on the YouTube channel, Generally Nerdy. So there is a trailer for Scorpion's Revenge, the animated movie that's coming out later this year, and also we got the official announcement before the trailer launched that the MPAA has given Scorpion's Revenge an R rating. Judging by the trailer, obviously there's going to be blood because it is Mortal Kombat and, you know, death and violence and so on and so forth. But there are some dark elements in the trailer that kind of fly under the radar. One of them specifically, I talk about it in detail in the reaction video, so go check that out. But yeah, super excited about that, but that's what we got for movies. Next up is gaming, and gaming is a quick one, only one piece, and it has to do with Arkham Knight, the Batman series the Batman game rather, that is now 5 years old, is getting a new DLC. And only for PlayStation 4. I don't understand what's going on here. But, so, PlayStation 4 is getting the Thomas Wayne Batman skin. So, the Earth 2 Batman skin. So, you know, red eyes, red bat logo, awesome leather skin. The story behind the skin is super complicated and convoluted and ridiculous. Basically, they released this skin about a year or so after the game launched, so it's not that new, but you had to get it under very, very specific circumstances. Like, literally, you had to be at E3 that year. That's the only way you got it. And then they kind of sort of released it on the PlayStation Network, and now they're releasing it full-fledged for everyone on PlayStation. And us Xbox players are just going to have to accept that we're never going to have this as a downloadable skin. But that's what we got for gaming. Next, we're moving into comic books. There is one very awesome piece in comic books. We got a new Boys comic book coming out. That's right, the Amazon series, The Boys, did so well, even Garth Ennis couldn't say no. So, the entire original team, we have Garth Ennis, we have Ross Braun, and Derek Robertson, are coming back to do a 2-issue story all about Becky Butcher. So Billy's wife, the one that kind of is the catalyst for Billy to do all of those terrible, terrible things in the story to the superheroes, his wife only really got an issue or so originally, and she was, again, the catalyst for so much in that story. It seems very weird. It's borderline, if not pretty set in the women in refrigerators trope. That is getting corrected. Garth Ennis, again, and crew are coming back to explore Betsy Butcher a little bit more detail, because Ennis really liked her character enough that he specifically, this isn't a studio mandate, this is Ennis saying, you know what, I really like Becky Butcher, and sorry, it's a little bit of a tongue twister. I really like Becky. I really want to flesh that character out so we understand why she was so impactful on the story at large. It's pretty friggin' cool, if you ask me. So that I totally can get behind. Yeah. Now let's get into the rumor mill, shall we? Rumor mill, first thing, we have a potential rumor about Namor. This one is actually has kind of sort of been floating around to some degree for a little while, but it's now picking up a little bit of steam because the kid who is reportedly playing a young version of Namor has started making announcements that his character will be played by somebody else in future movies, and talks about the history of his character in a very third-person kind of way. Doesn't ever use the name, and the history of his character sounds a lot like Namor. Is this going to be our introduction into mutants? This kind of seems a little out of left field, but it's totally feasible that this, being as Namor was not the first mutant canonically in Marvel, but the first mutant that they wrote, so back in the 50s, I want to say, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, but I'm pretty sure the first Namor book was like 54. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. So the first mutant that was written into the pages of Marvel Comics, not the first mutant in the lore of Marvel Comics, is Namor, and so it would kind of make sense that that was the first mutant that we get in the MCU, right? So that would be kind of cool if they did that. It would be a different kind of homage to the source material. So next we have Secret Invasion. There is a rumor that we are getting a Secret Invasion series over on Disney+. Once we know a little bit more about the Captain Marvel 2 movie, then we'll probably be able to tell how much water this rumor actually holds. Until then, we got to just move on. Our next piece almost has kind of been confirmed because it's in so many outlets at this point, but Transformers is getting 2 new movies. This is still technically a rumor because it has not been announced by the studio. One is the sequel to the Bumblebee movie with Haley Steinfeld. The other is going to be the official hard reboot of the Transformers series, the Michael Bay Transformers. That being said, it's not going to be the same story. So it's not a full-on reboot in that it's going to be based on the Beast Wars version of Transformers rather than the original 80s version of Transformers. So again, we won't know that this is for real until we hear it from the studio. So we're moving on. Next, we have a filming rumor, Section 31 for Star Trek. If you are a Trekkie, then you know this is all but officially happening. And the rumor is that now the filming is set to begin in May. I can't remember if this has been officially announced as being actually in production. No, it has been officially announced as actually being in production. The last update we had from it, though, they had not set on any scripts, and there was not anything as far as production lined up yet. So rumor has it that is now changed, and they are supposed to begin filming. Sorry, first day with the new lips. They are supposed to begin filming in May. And our last piece for the rumor mill is a Star Wars related piece. Now, I did a nerd rant video on Generally Nerdy about whether or not we actually need George Lucas in Star Wars. It seems now that George Lucas is willing to come back to Star Wars. The rumor is that he is kind of sort of being quoted by Disney, and so he told Disney straight up he would be willing to come back so long as he was the sole person in charge of Star Wars and he had full creative control to bring in whom he wanted. Specifically, he said he wanted to bring in Dave Filoni as his right-hand man, quote unquote. Now, if this is true, then the Filoni piece is smart on his part because Lucas does not do great things for Star Wars. Aside from the creation of the story, I mean, the 4 movies he was heavily involved in none of them are number 1. And actually, the 3 of those 4 are not even in the top 5, maybe? Well, I don't know. Revenge of the Sith was pretty good. I don't hate any of them, but I really have a fondness for Revenge of the Sith. Anyway, so rumor is we will very likely be seeing George Lucas, if Disney is willing to give him the reins from Kathleen Kennedy, we will be seeing Lucas in charge of Star Wars once again. But that, guys, is the end of today's episode. What did I miss? What should we talk about in the next one? Let me know in the comments down below. If, though, you want to go deeper in the conversation, jump over to the website, generallynerdy.net, or there's a Patreon, patreon.com/generallynerdy, if you want more content and you want to help support the channel. Every little bit counts. You can log on or sign on for just $1 and you get a bunch of stuff, all the backlogs, all of the nerd rants. And there's a couple other series I'm working on getting going for the Patreon. It's just a matter of finding time to do them. So if you support me on Patreon, I will have the time to do them because I won't have to work my day job as often. So anyway, that is the way of things. And again, what did I miss, guys? Let's talk about it. Let's have that conversation. Before we go, though, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.